Hello my lovely crafty people, and we're back with the DiScArDeD project. And if you watched the last video on the shibori, you'll know that I'm doing some fabric manipulation. So I had another go at the shibori using this chiffon fabric, which has really taken it well. And what I used for this was flat buttons, so that's taken really well. I also had a go at using some of the DiScArDeD plastic carrier bag to do shibori, and I did put beads inside, and then I just dipped that in boiling hot water, and it worked really well. It's definitely created texture. And then I've just used a bit of DiScArDeD toy stuffing to fill some of those there. And here is just a sample of the shibori just left together. That's the one I did on the video. I do actually quite like the way the dye has taken to the fabric. It just kind of adds to the DiScArDeD element. And then I had a look at pleating. I just had a look at a simple pleat. And I just sewn that and just fraying the edges a little to just create that DiScArDeD kind of touch. Fraying is one of the techniques I'm going to look at. This pleating is really cool. It creates like a fish scale effect. And all the fabrics I've used are from my fabric stash, most of which have come from DiScArDeD clothing or stuff I've picked up in the charity shop. This was actually a hair accessory I'd made and I didn't use, so I unpicked it and reused the fabric there. This was an offcut from an old men's Hawaiian shirt, and it's a little bit stained. And so this fabric then I pleated, I box pleated, and then I've opened up the boxes. This is more of that lovely, what is it? Sarong material that has been bleach stained. And I used it to create a fan effect. And then I have smocked, and it gives like a really nice effect. I mean, it was quite fiddly to do, and it took a while to grasp it, but that gives quite a nice effect. I've then done some ruching, and I've pulled, so I just did a really long stitch, straight stitch down the fabric 3 times, and then I just pulled the fabric into the thread. And that's created a really nice ruched effect. I'm probably going to have a go at dyeing that. Maybe with tea or with coffee. Just, yeah. And then this was a really large fabric flower that I'd picked up when in the charity shop, we had a whole load of millinery stuff come in. And there were these really large, like silky flowers. And I've pulled off the petals and stuck it to some ribbon that I melted when I was ironing. And then I've just gathered the ribbon, and it's done like a really nice layered effect, but I'm going to do some more layers. I've also found some examples of the techniques I've already looked at in fashion. So you've got a shibori scarf, shibori jacket. I really like this rope wig that's on that one. A dress made out of pleated newspaper. That looks really cool. Here's another shibori and some more pleating. So very similar to my box pleating, but they've just not opened them. And then just layers of pleated fabric. So as I go through, I'm going to pick out some images to go with the things. And I'm just going to, at every stage, think about, how can I use this in my DiScArDeD project? How can I represent a DiScArDeD item through this? I have predominantly used the turquoise fabric and blue plastic, so I am going to continue with the turquoise blue theme. And I'm going to have a look at fraying and burning. And what else am I doing? Let's just check my PowerPoint. It's being slow. So I'm going to have a look at some burning and bleaching. I will be using bleach, but I understand in school you have to use Milton. They work just as well. I don't have Milton at home. I'm going to do some patchwork, some distressing. I'm going to collage some layers, have a go maybe at rusting, staining, so tea staining. I'm definitely going to have a go at staining this with some coffee, and maybe even some beetroot juice, just having a look at how we can stain, burning, crushing, see if I can fade it using that diluted bleach, and just do some patchwork and some fragmented. So the titles we're looking at really are torn and frayed, deteriorated and distressed, patched and mended, stained and corroded. I did have a go at these before I got the prompts, but actually this is kind of distressing it because it's breaking down the fabric fibres, and yeah, crushing it and remolding it, and I love the way this looks like little mushrooms, which is quite cool. So I'm going to start with frayed, and I have looked at these for absolute ages, and I want to do like a frayed feather. So this is an old pair of jeans that I've been cutting up, and I've used some of it for a handbag, and some of it now is going to have a look at this. So I'm going to turn this over and just want to roughly draw a feather kind of shape, going up to a point, just bringing it down, feather shape. And then I'm just going to fold that in half like that and cut that feather shape out. Fortunately, these are really good scissors. They're really good for cutting fabric anyway. I'm not going to cut away there because I want to use that for like the feather stalk. So I'm just going to cut into that. And these bits I possibly do some bleaching on, possibly do some other bits and bobs on. But we're going to have a look at fabric manipulation. So this is the first fraying I'm going to do. And then to do this, it's really fun. I'm going to get my little tool. I'm just going to pull out the denim fibres and just pull them out. So pulling out, we'll pull out the blue, so I may end up dyeing this anyway. So you can see it's just starting to pull them out. Because I've cut it on the diagonal, obviously I need to start with those ones on the edge. I'm just going to carry this on until all the fibres are pulled out. You can see it's already coming out. I'm going to keep going. I'm going down the diagonal so that I can get those fibres out. And then hopefully we should be left with a feather shape that's frayed, with the spine of the feather being the seam that was already on the jeans. It's a great way of using up kind of jeans. I've used them to make a handbag and use the pockets as actual pockets on the handbag, and it looks really cool. I do really want to make a full denim handbag, but I need to collect. I've got friends now going through theirs and their husbands' jean stashes, and they're going to save some for me. So I'm going to carry on with this. I will video it, but I will speed up the video, obviously. So I'm going to keep going with that, and I will come back to you when it's done, and then we'll have a look at what else we're going to fray. So today we're looking at fraying. Okay, so having frayed the one side of the feather, I then cut in to the other side to create kind of the feathery effect on the other side. So I'm just pointing off some of the cuts, and I'm keeping all of my thread fab scraps and all in this tub, because I'm going to use those to do some fused fabric, and I'll show you that in another video. So that's that. Now what I want to do with this woven piece, so it's just a piece, this is the only bit I've got left. I want to pull out some of the darker threads to kind of fray in the middle. So I'm just pulling them out, teasing them out. I don't want to fray too much on the edges. I want to keep some of the stability of the fabric. So just pulling some out of the middle of this woven fabric. It's a really nice piece of cloth actually, but this is the only bit I've got left, as I said. So I'm just pulling them out. So you can see I've kind of frayed the middle of that. So that's another frayed effect. So what I was saying about distressing like a netting fabric. So I've got, let's use this one. This is a slightly thicker one. So I'm going to cut a piece off this. These are some, I think they're like dancing ribbons or just chiffon netting that, again, I picked up in the charity shop. So just, you'll notice most of my fabrics are reused, repurposed. I very rarely buy fabric as fabric. I just reuse what it is. So to do this, just, ow, carefully, not to stab yourself too much, but you'll see it frays it and distresses the fabric quite nicely. So you can just pull out and fray some of the, see kind of the effects of it, the fraying and the distressing a little bit better. So let me pause the video. My heat gun is behind me. Please be careful when you're heating fabrics and plastics. Just be really mindful that some of them will give off toxic gases, and just do this in a well ventilated area. And if you feel like you're getting a headache or anything, just stop, get some fresh air, have a drink of water, and then come back to it, particularly when you're adding heat. Right, so I'm just going to give the little blast on the edges just to kind of them up, and then I'll just come back and okay, so just blasting that with the heat gun, you can see it started to melt just a few of the fibres, but it does, by putting it on a white background, you can see the fraying of it and the distressing and pulling the fibres out. So there's a few frayed, and the last thing I want to fray is, I saw a really cool effect where you use kind of a more synthetic-y type fabric, and you fray by pulling out some of the fibres. So let's just pull out some of the fibres using the hook. And then what you can do, is this going to work? Hopefully. What you can do is kind of tie what's left together. So I'm going to have a go at doing that. I'm not sure it's going to work actually, but let's have a look. Oh, okay, we've got a big enough hole. Right, I might have to do it this way. Oh, that's some tearing. There we go. Just ripping it. And just pulling out some of these. There you go. Pulling out some of these fibres. And then what you can do is once you've pulled enough of these out, okay, so you can see I've got like this band of fibres in the middle, and then just using just some of your leftover thread, or you could just use normal thread. Tying it on, and then what I'm going to do is just wrap it round. Tie it at the other end. It's a little bit fiddly. So this is all just about experimenting and using different methods. So by turning it over, you can see you've got the kind of the frayed edge, and then in the middle you've got the frayed pieces tied together. So I'm going to carry on doing some more of that. Quite like that. Let's just cut this piece of fabric a little bit. Okay. And then what I am actually going to do is cut using the pinking shears, because I don't really want the edges too frayed. I want the kind of the emphasis on the frayed and the torn in the middle. So there we go. I'm going to carry on doing that, and then I will finish the video by showing you that, and I might even do some more torn bits. But yeah, so showing you that at the end. Okay. Okay, so I have finished the fraying on those bits, and that one was a bit of cutting and ripping as well. Found some other bits and bobs, and there's a couple more methods I want to have a go at for the fraying and tearing, and this one I'm going to do slashing. Again, another technique I've not used before. So the point of slashing is that you layer up layers of fabrics, and again I've gone through that blue pattern. So this is a bit of lace that came out of a fabric sample book, some pleather, some velour, and then kind of like a polka dot and this lovely turquoisey mottled effect. So I'm going to layer them all up. I might put some denim at the back so it's got like a hard fabric at the back. I'm not sure yet. And I would normally pin them, but because I'm going through the pleather, I'm just going to staple them together at the top with my very cheap stapler that's a bit rubbish. I do have a better one somewhere, but hang on, let's pull that out. Let's try again. Staple them together at the top. And then the idea is I sew them like kind of straight down all the way, or I could go that way, and then you cut through either just one layer or several layers or however many layers you want to create like a slash effect. And where you've sewn the lines, then it will hold everything together and you'll just have like an overpull of fabric or effects that you're using. So I'm going to put a little bit of denim on the back, I think, and then I'm going to do that on the sewing machine. I'm just going to sew some straights, maybe some diagonals as well, and then we'll come back and we'll cut into it and we'll slash and layer, which will be quite cool, I hope. Okay, so now I've finished all the different frayed techniques. If you remember, we did the feather, then we pulled some of the fibres out, and this one we pulled and slashed and tore and then pulled the fibres out. In the end, I didn't tie the things together because I quite like that, and I'm going to pop it onto some dark background. I'm not putting that on the frayed page because I need room for my write-up, so I'm going to keep that for my next section, which is distressed. And then if you remember, we slashed this and you can see the different fabrics in the layers and the distressed fibres coming through, the frayed fibres even. And then this one was just frayed by dragging a stabby thing across the chiffon. So my next video will be just a quick recap of what we've already done, and then moving on to look at distressed fabrics. How can I distress them using ink, heat, ice, fire, bleach, and all other lots of different ways, sandpaper, lots of ways of distressing different fabrics. So that's the next video to come, distressed. So that's the end of the frayed video, and I hope you're enjoying these videos. Please drop me a comment below if you can think of any other ideas of how I can alter fabric and manipulate fabric, and if there's any particular techniques you'd like me to have a go at, just drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe bell so you're notified when I upload the next video. Thanks for watching.